I was able to stack up 20,800 points for search raider caches during Hurricane on Dam Battlegrounds. Now this video is going to be slightly different, but I've done this format before. The first couple of minutes will be my normal overview, tips and tricks for how to be effective with doing this challenge, and then the back end will just be the remaining playthrough at 4x speed that you can reference during your run. Now keep in mind the raider caches are somewhat randomly placed, so the ones that I have in my run may not be exactly what ones you have in yours, but the route that I run is a good general guideline for ensuring that you hit a lot of the cache spawn locations. For your equipment, you don't necessarily need to bring a whole lot, but the key things you want to think about is bringing the Surge shield rechargers, which are important for the Hurricane event, because you will be taking that persistent damage to your shield and you need those to recharge it fully. I do recommend 8 to 10 stacks of adrenaline shots. While this is slightly overkill, if you end up going against the wind a lot, you'll end up burning through a lot of your adrenaline shots, and you just don't want to run out. Now, in terms of weapons to manage the enemies that you come across, you really don't come across a ton of enemies, especially running the routes that you do, but you'll run across comets and fireflies infrequently, so I would recommend something like a hole cracker that will enable you to take them out super quick and get back to running your route. Now, in terms of understanding where the raider caches are, I recommend using an online interactive map. I tend to use Metaforge. It's reasonably accurate for the most part. Just keep in mind that the icons are placed by other players, so there is some inaccuracy a little bit in how they're placed. But as long as you understand that the icons are generally good, it's just they might not be exactly precise to where you find the cache, it makes it pretty easy to understand what you need to do in terms of running your route. Now, a key thing you want to think about is that where you spawn in is going to be specific to how you want to run your route based on the way the wind is blowing. You want to try and reduce the amount of time that you spend running against the wind, and sometimes that might mean adjusting your route so that you run against the wind for a short part of the beginning, so that the back end of your route doesn't actually end up going against the wind as much. As an example, if you were to spawn on like the west side of the map at like the Pale Apartments or the Old Battleground or the Swamp, and the wind was blowing against you, so coming across from the east to the west, it would actually be a good idea to go up to the Ruby Residence and then across to the Pattern House and back through Power Generation. While it will suck up front for you to get through these while going against the wind, when you start to go down into the Red Lakes and over to the caches over here and the rest of the route overall, you end up benefiting from the wind being at your back more often than you would if you were to come down this way and then go around the other way. So you just have to think about it from that perspective, and it's going to be dynamic. And as far as I know, it's random in terms of the direction it goes again. So there's not like it's going to be consistent between runs either. So you have to kind of figure out what your route is based on the way the wind is blowing. Now, as you're running this route, I do recommend night mode. Now, this might be something that is a little bit more specific to how I hear, but I have found that running in night mode lets me hear the beeping just a little bit better. Night mode kind of seems to boost the ambient noises and reduce some of the louder noises like weapon fire and explosion. So for somebody like me, it makes the raider cache beeping just a little bit easier to hear in general. Now, other ways that you can consider trying to reduce the noise pollution as you're doing this is you could also just take off your shield. Now, obviously taking off your shield is a super dangerous potential way to do it, but it reduces the amount of static that you're hearing from your shield taking that damage and being drained of its shield charge. And that amount of noise being reduced can make it a little bit easier to hear the caches also. As you are running to the first cache, you essentially want to listen for the beeping as best you can. And when you get to the area where an icon is on the interactive map, what you essentially want to do is do like a full sweep of the area. Don't just run to where you think the icon is specifically and try and match your position 1-to-1, but go to that area and then run and zigzag around until you're able to find the cache. Now, some caches will be really obvious and really easy to see, like they're out in the open on the dirt, and so it's very obvious when something is sticking out of place. But other caches will be actually in the brush and in the foliage, and it will make it a little bit more challenging for you to find and to see them. Now, in general, this challenge functions a lot like the Open Arc Probes challenge. The first player to search a raider cache will take considerably longer to open it than players that come in after the fact. Now, in terms of running your route, if you want to be effective with your time, you essentially want to ignore everything that's in the raider cache. But if you are the first player to open a raider cache, accept that 1 to 2 second delay of it showing you the items that are in it, because you can get some really, really good stuff if you're the first player to a raider cache. In my second attempt at this run, I got 2 different Kanto blueprints. I've never had one. I got a Volcano blueprint and a Tempest blueprint. So it can be really valuable if you just want to stop and look at what's inside of them, saying that you're the first player that's looted them. If you're the second player that's come across it, the first player's already picked it apart and there's no need to look at what's inside of it. Just tap it and keep moving. Now, you don't necessarily need to bring in zip lines or snap hook, but I'd actually recommend doing that if you can. Not necessarily because you need it for any sort of movement on the map, but I was actually in a spot during this run where I got stuck in place. I tried to jump over a rock and the wind pushed me into like some gap between the rock and the ledge, and my player was unable to move. So I ended up having to use my snap hook to get out of it. And I would guess that if you had a zip line, you could also get out of it, but just having that will ensure that if you get stuck in a place like I did, you're not stuck there forever and you can get yourself out of it. So I do recommend bringing those in if just for that reason. In terms of your stamina management, I would recommend that you essentially adrenaline shot when your stamina bar is at about 25% remaining. You don't really want to spend any time regaining your stamina naturally. You want to make sure that you're always adrenaline shotted up as best you can. This will just help you cover more of the map and let you have a higher chance at finding the raider caches. Now beyond that, there isn't really a ton more to this challenge. It's really just a find and search, and it's really simple to do, but just it takes a little bit of time to learn where the raider caches are. Don't forget, you can also use a raider hatch key during Hurricane, so you're able to get yourself out safely if you want to. During this run, I actually did not remember whether or not I could use a raider hatch key, so instead of using the hatch to get out, I went to an extraction, just because I didn't want to risk going to a raider hatch and being wrong if I misremembered whether or not you could use them. But yes, you can 100% use raider hatches, so make sure you do that to keep yourself safe and your trials points safe. Once you've found enough caches and you're happy with your score, head back to Speranza, collect any loot if you haven't already, and watch your score fly up the leaderboard. That's going to be it for me today, y'all. Thanks for watching.